Hey guys, Abhi from Iconic Motorbikes here in beautiful Tennessee, just outside of Deals Gap for the US press launch of the 2024 Yamaha MT-09 SP. Now, to save your time, I'm not going to go over every single thing about the base model MT-09. We do have a video for that as well as a written review you can check out in the description. But what I want to do is focus on what's different for this bike and why I think you'd be crazy to get the base one over this. So before I get into what's good, bad, and iconic about the MT-09 SP, let's start with what's new for this model and what makes it unique. SP, which does not necessarily stand for anything, but in Japanese history has traditionally meant sport production, especially with, say, the Yamaha FCR 400 SP and that kind of thing. The SP is an upgrade in multiple ways. You get better suspension, you get better brakes, you get some unique finishes, cosmetics, and you also get some changes to the electronics package. So, suspension. Up front, you've got KYB 41mm forks, fully adjustable with both high-speed and low-speed compression damping. In the back, you've got an Öhlins shock, also fully adjustable. Those two things by themselves would be well over $1,700 if you wanted to order them for yourself and then add them on. And there's a reason I said $1,700, we'll come back to that. In addition to that though, you're gonna get Brembo Stylema calipers, which I think are a huge upgrade over the original Advix. Plus, I mentioned the finish. So this paint job here is inspired by Yamaha's flagship bike, their super bike, the R1M, and you also get a brushed aluminum finish on the swing arm. And then from an electronics standpoint, we're seeing Yamaha push this into something that you could feel comfortable taking to a track day, or even maybe go racing with. And so with that in mind, in addition to the regular riding modes, there's now 4 fully customizable track modes. There's a track setting where you can use the high beam flasher to set your lap times and then go back and look into the screen and see, okay, during a given lap, what my max speed was, what my average speed was, how about my max lean angle was. It's all the kind of stuff that you really shouldn't be looking at when you're on the street because it's gonna make you push harder and go crazy. And I have to admit, I was a little guilty of that myself today, but it's a really cool feature to have in there. From a skill standpoint, those electronic packages also give you, in the track world, the ability to change engine brake management. So if you want a little bit more engine braking, a little bit less, you can change that. And if you're one of those hooligans, you can turn ABS off on the rear wheel if you wish. So in a nutshell, that's what's new, specific to the SP for this year. So let's talk about what's good. And frankly, what's good is everything I just said. I really, really am impressed with this bike. The biggest things for me are gonna be the suspension and the brakes. For the base bike, which we reviewed earlier this year, the stock Advix were one of my very few complaints. I think this motor, this 890cc motor, is really punchy, makes good power, and because Yamaha shifted the ergonomics of this bike, the base model, earlier in the year when they made their changes, they made it a little bit more aggressive. It used to be a bit more upright. Now it's a little bit more aggressive. You're getting more of your weight on the front wheel. It's just sportier and more fun to ride. Well, with that in mind, you're going faster and you're coming into a corner pretty hot, and I just thought the Advix were lacking a little bit of bite. So I'm really excited to see those Stylemas up there. One, the calipers actually weigh a little bit less, which is always good for unsprung weight. 2, they look trick, which is not a bad thing. And then 3, the pistons inside are larger. So that's actually the bulk of where that's where you're getting the extra bite, which I needed to rely on a couple of times here at Deals Gap. And I thought it was great. I have no complaints about the brakes anymore. From a suspension standpoint, I already mentioned the 41mm forks. These caps here actually have some nice, I always love little details, and you can see that here on the fork caps. It's got laser etching, it looks like MT-09 SP by KYB kind of thing. It seems like something that they're proud of, and they should be, because it's definitely a huge upgrade over what the base bike had. It's not to say what the base suspension was, it's not that it was a bad fork setup for the new bike, but this is definitely an upgrade. It's stiffer. So it's kind of crazy what Yamaha has done with this MT-09 platform over the years. The base bike this year got a stiffer suspension than before, and then this SP gets an even more stiff front end. And for my weight and size and that kind of thing, I'm just about 195 pounds, I thought it was great. I didn't need to have any adjustments made up front. For the shock, I did add a little bit of preload. I'm probably a little heavier than the average rider this bike was designed for. But once I put a little bit extra preload in it, the shock was great as well. I was really, like I said, blown away by those things. There's some technology that, it's got keyless ignition, which is nice, I guess, but that's not going to change my mind about buying the bike versus something else. One special note, even though it's not new specifically to the SP, we do have these audio amplifier grills, which are basically a way of getting more direct air from the air box so you can hear the intake noise. it definitely works. It's not a gimmick, and it's especially when you have the stock pipe on, for example, it's nice to be able to hear that. It's just a little joy when you're getting on it in a straightaway. In terms of what's bad, not really much to say here, at least from a mechanical standpoint, a performance standpoint. Again, the keyless thing, I can take it or leave it. My biggest complaints with the base bike have been rectified now with this SP. And so that really just leaves me, if I have to say something, it's the styling. I think for years I've had the pleasure and the honor of coming to these launches for Yamaha, and I think they make a really great bike. But every time I look at it, it's not the kind of thing I'd park home in my garage and then before I open the door, turn back to stare at it longingly. Of course, styling is subjective. You might disagree. I do think I like the finishes that they've applied for the SP. Some of the changes are cosmetic, like intentionally designed that way, and some of the changes are just because they're using better components. Like I think that gold anodization on the forks looks fantastic and it really pops. You got the blue wheels. You've got this paint job here. You know, the finishes and things like that I think look great. The overall styling just not for me. What are you gonna do? That leaves we with what's iconic. And as I mentioned earlier when I started this video, it would be kind of crazy to me to buy the base bike over this. And the reason I say that, there's always gonna be, everyone's got their own situation. So let me caveat by saying that. For me, for my riding style, riding skill, the upgrade in performance that you get from the suspension and the brakes is well worth more than $1,700. That you would have to do to get it yourself. And frankly, even, so like let's say you did somehow get discounted parts somewhere to make these upgrades, well, you're not gonna be able to add the keyless ignition or the track packages, the rear ABS off, that kind of thing. This bike is so good in its current form that I think Yamaha has done a fantastic job with that. It does, again, make me wonder who exactly is gonna be buying the base model. It's a $1,700 price difference, and I realize now I haven't actually mentioned the price of this yet. $12,299. So yeah, that is a bump up. The base bike's gonna be in the 10 range, and so I don't wanna be as naive to say like, oh, just spend more money, you get a better bike, duh. But so if you really, you know, if you have a fixed budget around 10K, I get it. But if you're financing it or something like that, you really, really owe it to yourself to take a look at this. When we did the base model launch, I think it was in San Jose or something like that earlier this year, Yamaha had a really interesting stat about how the average buyer for something like this had about 9 years of riding experience. The average SP buyer has 15 years of experience. And I think it's one of those things that when you look back at the data, it's evident that people with more experience can really understand and appreciate the differences and the improvements that come from core concept of a motorcycle like suspension and brakes. So if I had to sum it up in one line, I think from a value proposition, Yamaha's done a great job here of offering something that costs $1,700 more, but gives you much more than that, plus a dash of exclusivity if you're into that thing. You know, now, of course, with the price coming up, it means it's competing with different bikes, like maybe a Triumph Street Triple. I haven't ridden one of those recently enough to make a direct comparison, but I will say Yamaha's done a great job here, and if you're looking for that kind of middleweight, premium middleweight, you definitely owe yourself a test ride on one. So thanks so much as always for watching. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments. Check out the review, the written one we'll have, and we'll see you on the next one.